you're walking down the street in Hollywood and you discover a box of letters between the Star Trek producers, a treasure trove of insider information. What would you do? Well, I found that box.
And he shared it with me, John Kramer.
I shared it with Kramer.
So that we could share it with the universe.
Nomad, the perfect Star Trek podcast.
Hello and welcome to Nomad, the perfect Star Trek podcast, where we know things about Star Trek that you don't. And why is that? Because we have all the correspondence, letters, and emails straight from the desks of the producers. My name is David Pompeii, and here with me, as always, is my co-host and dear friend, John Kramer.
Good to see you today, or good to hear from you.
I see you and hear from you.
Well, yeah, if you're listening, you're not seeing us, but if you're on YouTube, then you're seeing us. Yeah. How it works.
Buddy, I think we got a great show this week. We've got the letter from Michael Piller, where we will be discussing the Voyager episode Juggernaut. We have our first ever Star Trek toss-up. That ought to be fun. And we got a couple other surprises along the way. But first, I always have to catch up with you. So what's been happening lately? Wait, you guys just had a wedding anniversary. Let me make sure I get this right. 38 years?
That's right. My wife and I have been married for 38 years, July 2nd.
Wow, 38 years. So you have to give a shout out.
Doesn't seem... to my lovely wife, Peggy, who made the 38 years fun.
Peggy is a lot of fun. Can I say I had the pleasure of meeting her on several occasions and talking to her many, many times. And she would play the football pool with us. And I think she won far more than she should have.
I think her phrase was, she kicked all your asses. And loves doing it. She knows football.
Well, if the viewers ever get a chance, or listeners ever get a chance to hear from Peggy, that would be great because she's a lot of fun. So, what you guys did you celebrate? Like, what'd you do?
Well, we went out to a French restaurant and ate some escargot and drank some wine, and it was just really cool being out. It was they had the doors to the cafe open, and so it was a beautiful day. It was normal. It's so wonderful to be feeling normal again.
Wow, that sounds great, and I love French food. And escargot reminds me of a funny story. I was hanging out with a buddy of mine, and I was like, dude, remember that? I don't know if you remember this place in Chicago. It was called the Little Corporal. Their logo had Napoleon on it, and they had the French flags out. And I used to stop in there and get escargot and a glass of wine sometimes at lunch. So I'm hanging out with a buddy of mine. I'm like, dude, let's stop in the Little Corporal. He starts laughing. The Little Corporal? What the hell are you talking about? Let's stop in here. I'm like, dude, you should try the escargot. He orders the escargot. Mm-hmm. He's eating it. He's like, oh, it's good, because I wouldn't tell him what it was. So it's good. I'm like, wow, it is good. You know what that is? He goes, no, what is it? It's snails. He spits it out and won't eat anymore. Wouldn't eat anymore. Now, it was good until he knew what it was.
Yeah, the best thing about escargot though is the Pernod butter. And you dip the bread in it afterwards. That is so good.
See, now you're making me hungry. My wife's going to see this. She's going to hear this, and then I'm going to have to take her to a French restaurant.
I can think of worse things.
That's true. That's true. Well, Kramer, it's always good to talk to you, but I think we probably should get into the show, right? Yes. So coming up next, we're going to do something we've never done before, which is a feature that I'm going to call Star Trek Picard. And we'll get into that right after this. Okay. Yes, we are back. Thank you very much for sticking around. I'd like to start this Picard segment with a little bit of a intro, a disclaimer, because it seems to be like nowadays, it's an American tradition for people to get on and pontificate, basically talk shit about something they know nothing about. So,
and may I add, no one is better at that than you.
Oh, I can think of a few. I could think of a few, but far be it from me to, I'm a traditionalist. So if this is a new American tradition, I'm going to take part in it, and I'm going to talk smack about something I know nothing about or have never seen, Star Trek Picard. Now, why am I qualified to talk about something I've never seen? Here's why. Because I've been in the industry so long, I can tell from the trailers, the promo, and what the industry is saying about something, whether or not it's going to be good. Even before I see it, I can see a trailer and I can predict a movie. And I can prove this if you need me to. My son will attest how uncanny I am at this. So, having seen, Star Trek Picard's been out now for about a year. And now it's season 2. And I saw a trailer for season 2. And I just started shaking my head. SMH, as they say online. Why? Because it seems like such an incredible waste of time. Why do I think this? Well, let's start off. First off, here's a show nobody asked for. I think producers today with films and television, they have a knack for putting out shit nobody really wants to see. And it needs some kind of background or some kind of show of success that they've had before, even if it's from a different medium, like a toy.
They want safe.
They want it to be safe. The other thing is, I know that there was another Star Trek series being shopped around that Paramount wouldn't do. Michael Dorn had a Klingon show that was going to be Worf after all the events of the movies. He's an ambassador on Kronos, and he's an older guy, and the cast would focus on these younger Klingon guys who, in my mind, it should have been Alexander Rozhenko if they hadn't ruined that character. And it was going to be
his son.
A Klingon-based series and their reaction to the Federation. That sounds way more interesting than Star Trek Picard. But my main problem with it is you bring in 7 of 9. That's supposed to, I guess, bridge the two shows. But she's not the 7 of 9 we know, so the character's automatically less interesting. Then you have Q was in the trailer. Q looks older than Picard. Now,
No, you're talking about the second
the
season.
Trailer that I saw that prompted me to do this.
7 of 9 was
she was in the first one. But why?
Right.
What's the point? And I would just say that one of the things that makes Patrick Stewart such an interesting actor and made Picard such a powerful presence was his voice. But now, at the mid-'80s, Patrick Stewart as an actor has lost one of his great instruments, which was his wind and his voice and his commanding presence. It's gone.
Well, let me tell you a story about him. I think you'll find really interesting because you were on stage for many years at the Second City in Chicago. And a few years back in Chicago, Second City did a show called The Second City's Guide to the Opera. And they did it at the Lyric Opera in Chicago. And they tried to combine improvisational comedy with opera. And for the opening night, they had Patrick Stewart there as the MC. And he had never done improv in his life.
Really?
And he started this. I've heard this from the actors involved with it. He started watching them, and he was on fire to do it, to get out on stage and do it. And he got out there, and he was really good at it. He just kept going backstage, going, "This is the greatest thing I've ever done."
Wow!
So even though he's in his 80s, he's willing to do new things. He's not closed off to new ideas and stuff. And that's kind of I think what you're talking about here is that they needed to really challenge him with something new in this show, and they didn't.
Well, for me, I'm a huge Picard fan. He's my second favorite captain, close second to Kirk. But
they're two sides of the same
I had
coin.
no desire to watch this show. None. It looked like the billboards were going to be better than the show.
Well, I have watched the show, and I have to tell you that you're pretty much spot on.
Wow.
It's really the show is very forgettable.
Wow.
7 of 9 was actually one of the nicer things about it because she shows up. the character has changed and grown as she would over time. And there was a huge Borg element to that season. So, you bring 7 of 9 in because of the Borg. And that kind of connects her with Picard. But even with all that, it just, by the end of the day, it's all the stuff where you're going, that, it's like the Vulcans are doing weird things, and it just, none of it makes sense. And it just, because one of the things that they have really lost sight of, to me, the reason Star Trek has endured is because, and I'm a huge science fiction fan. I've read, tons and tons of books and seen movies. It is I would argue it is the single most optimistic view of the future that anyone's ever put out. And there are problems with that. It makes it extremely difficult to write shows because it removes a lot of the conflict. And the original, like the Next Generation writers, I've heard them talk about that, how difficult it was, to find stories. But they did. It was really hard. But then, you when you start messing around with that and having, you take the optimism out of it, it's just kind of like, well, it's another dystopian future.
Exactly.
And God knows there are way too many of those.
Way too many of those. And to your point, I would piggyback on one of the reasons that happens is because I feel like the producers sometimes seem to lose sight that Star Trek was an innovative show. Now it's reactive. Star Trek led society down a given path.
Right.
Now they seem to react to whatever the trend is. It's the same problem James Bond has. James Bond, the producers of James Bond saw Jason Bourne and reacted to it. And that's why the James Bond movies suck now. They took away everything that was good about Bond. It's gone. And then you look at Star Trek. Star Trek seems to react now to all the other sci-fi that's out there when they used to set the trend.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole story of Roddenberry the first 2 years doing Star Trek was he was constantly arguing with the censors and with the network is about what he can do. You can't have a Russian on the bridge. You can't have Chinese guys on the bridge. You can't, why is this black? I don't even know if they argued with her.
No, I read that was a thing. And that's one of the reasons, because if you watch the original episodes with Captain Pike, the first original pilot, Majel Barrett is first officer.
Right.
And I remember seeing something, I believe it was Roddenberry saying that they got more letters from women complaining about her than from men. They were saying, who does she think she is? Why is she first officer? Who does blah, 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 blah. So they changed it and they made Spock first officer made her head nurse. So they used to set the trend. They used to set the pace. They were innovative and now they're reactive.
Yes.
All right.
So there you go, David. You nailed it. Picard, Star Trek Picard was a disappointing show.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, these latest things they've been doing have been, like Below Decks, the animated one.
Lower Decks.
That's Lower Decks. Fabulous show.
You keep saying that.
Like
I watched the first one.
I think it's. I know. Watch some more.
I watched.
It grows.
I watched the first one. The lead guy was too incompetent, and the female character was too good. Like he's not going to be this stupid, and she's not going to be this good. Can we meet in the middle somewhere?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it goes in a really good direction. I was very impressed by it. What they were doing with Discovery. Discovery is like hit or miss. Sometimes they really do great stuff, and then the next, the first season was just horrible. Some of the characters are really good, and some of the characters were terrible. And unfortunately, they lose some of the good characters. I don't know. It just it's disappointing. I mean, there's something there, and they just kind of. I mean, in part, it's like a committee. And they can't figure out what they want to do. And that's probably the biggest problem is there's nobody in charge.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I can't think of his name, but who is it that runs Marvel?
I can't think of his name. I don't even.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. But they got one guy there going. It's like he's in charge of the continuity. He's in charge of approves all the story. But he understands it and he gets it and he keeps it on the same path. Whereas with God knows who's running it.
Yeah.
They've got 5 different people doing it.
And when you do that, it's never going to be good. There's something to that old saying: "Too many cooks spoil the soup."
Oh, absolutely.
So. And that's another one. Discovery, another show nobody was asking for. We're certainly not trying to go backwards into a mirror universe. Can we go forward? What happened after Next Generation? Let's go forward. Star Trek producers, can you hear me? Let's go forward. All right, we'll be back with Michael.
Well, they did do. Okay, so we're back here, and David's got our letter for the week. And if you haven't been following us, this is really the heart of the podcast. David discovered, it's a long story, but David discovered a catch of letters from Michael Piller to the producers of Star Trek after he had left the show, but remained on as a creative consultant. So there's a ton of letters we have, in which they're discussing each script and all their various things. And that's really the heart of this show. And these letters are fabulous.
They are. I found them in the garbage. For those of you that don't know, I was walking down the street.
It's legal.
And there they were, just sitting in the garbage. And this week's letter, it's to Brannon Braga, this time from Michael Piller, and it's CC'd Rick Berman. And it's dated January 8th, 1999. R.E. Juggernaut. It's the first draft teleplay by Fuller, Sagan, and Biller. That's Brian Fuller, Nick Sagan, and Kenneth Biller. Regarding their first draft, which was dated January 7th, 1999. By the way, if you haven't seen Juggernaut, it's that one where the Malon are back, and the Malon are those guys, they kind of have their hair going sideways like bad clowns, and they've got sores all over them. They're kind of greenish because they're hauling this radioactive, like.
And they have these weird suits that they wear, like to protect them from radiation.
From all the,
except their heads are exposed.
Except, yes. They want to be protected, but they leave their heads exposed. And they're dumping this horrible radioactive and reactive toxic waste by the megaton in first they were doing it in charted areas, and now they're doing it in uncharted areas. And so it's that one. The Enterprise Voyager tries to help, and then they find some creature that's living in the toxic tanks.
Who turns out not to be a creature.
Yeah.
He's one of the
workers
aliens.
who's been down there. And
he's trying to make a statement and scare everybody.
Right. It's that one.
Well, the episode is titled Juggernaut. It is the 113th episode of the series, but number 21 of season 5. And it originally aired on April 26th of 1999. Starfleet standards, David.
So here's what Michael Piller has to say about this episode. He starts out with pretty slim pickings here. Very technical, a one-note familiar story, not my kind of show. And wow, I have to say, when I was watching it, it felt like I was watching X-Files. Really dark. You can't really see. There's some weird creature. Yeah. Nobody will believe it's there, even though you've seen the fucking thing. Yeah, it didn't feel like a Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I heard the actors were really unhappy with all the steam and the smoke, and they were all dirty, and they had to, it made it very difficult to shoot. Yeah, they had to do voiceover for other lines and stuff.
Yeah, they had to do a bunch of pickups.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Piller goes on to say, Torres is written, and my apologies for being sexist, like she woke up on the rag this week. It feels like one of
single best line in the letter. And I could not agree more with him.
She was really, really obnoxious, and just there's no other way to say it. She was just totally bitchy.
She's pissed off the whole
episode,
time, and you can't end up with no reason
until it's time for her to actually be angry. Then she wants to be reasonable. It was very strange, but we'll get into that in a second. So it feels like one of those character defects that you create especially for an episode and then fix it by the end of the hour. Artificial. Mm-hmm. She's just going off and going off and going off and going off for no real reason. Then at the end, when she needs to harness this anger and beat up the guy who's doing all the monster stuff, now she wants to be reasonable and talk.
Yeah, well, let's cut to the chase here, because what I find the best thing about the letter is the producers ignored everything Michael Piller recommended. They kept it exactly the same. They didn't address any of his issues.
Oh, well, okay. Well, then let's get back to the letter and hear the rest of them. We got a quick break right now, and then we'll come back for part 2. Okay, and we're back for part 2. And so Kramer's point was that the showrunners completely ignored all of Pillar's suggestions. So his third paragraph starts with, and these are very short paragraphs, by the way. His third one starts with, I felt the introduction of the Lazar came awfully late for a picture that depends entirely on a monster. You may want to bring that in earlier and give it a first name like Swifty. Now, I don't...
Yeah. Inside... I know what that is.
I don't get the Swifty.
Lazar.
Oh.
Swifty Lazar was the biggest agent in Hollywood for decades.
Oh.
He's like a super powerful guy. Yeah.
Oh. So give it a name like Swifty, so they named him after this agent? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Okay, and then he goes on to say, I didn't think your tease worked. It's long, full of technobabble, and doesn't offer a sense of mystery. I'm not at all sure what I've seen after it's over. Starting a script from a new point of view just isn't enough to tease the episode. His last line, we can do better stories than this.
Yes, they could. And what's really interesting, this is the third letter we've done, and I'm pretty sure that they haven't taken any of its advice up to this point.
Well, no, it seems like they took some of it, but I can't remember specifically now, but certainly not this week.
I mean, usually when you read these letters, it's like weeks away from, they're not, ready to shoot it quite yet, so they're still in, pre-production on it. And I don't see a lot of changes being made. I mean, I just wonder if it's because, he's no longer in the office all the time. He's not at the studio. And they're just sending this stuff, emailing him, assuming these letters back and forth. And, because he's not there, it's like, well, we'll still see if he's got any ideas. But he doesn't have any power anymore. He's a consultant.
That's true. Having been on the inside of a few of these things, I can say that sometimes it's ego, and Hollywood is an ego-driven industry. And yes. So for example, if you take over a franchise like Star Trek, the first thing you want to do is make it your own.
You got to fix it.
You want to be seen as that guy or that girl who came in and fixed these issues and came up with this wonderful, innovative thing. And usually something is in place for a reason. And if I guess what I'm trying to get at is don't change things just so you can make your mark. Change it for the better. Don't just change it.
No, I know. They come in and they say, well, I fixed that. And so if the thing's a hit, they could go, well, if I hadn't come in and straightened it all out, it would have all gone in the toilet.
Well, I could totally see what is the point of sending your scripts to Pillar if you're not going to listen? So unless someone else has said, send these to Michael, I want him to have some input on the script. Somebody big up in the studio.
Well, he was still writing movies for them.
Yes, he was doing Insurrection while this was happening.
Yeah, so they're trying to keep them happy too. Looking to the future. You never know.
Yeah, you never really know. But yeah, you're right. They don't take a whole lot of his advice. And and maybe the production by the time he sees the script is too far along. I don't know when they shot it. We know when it aired, but we don't necessarily know when they shot it. We can estimate. I would have to look at some dates and we could guess, but
yeah. But I mean, the bottom line, like, we'll explore that as we go along here. How often do they actually take his advice?
Wow, we should come up with a chart. Maybe we should get our intern. What's your intern's name?
My intern is Eddie.
Oh, my intern's name is Joe. I think it was Pete last week, but it doesn't really matter. I don't know their names.
Yeah,
anyway.
Eddie. Yeah.
We didn't do audience reaction. What was the audience critical
that's a great one.
Fan reaction to this episode?
Let me jump in with it. So this episode received the worst ratings of the series.
Whoa! Wait! Not of the season, of the series.
Of the series.
Wow!
Voyager had been moved to a new time slot.
Oh, so that might have.
So it only had a 1.7 on Nielsen and a 2.5 million share. But what I thought was interesting is I read some little pieces about it. And the people who loved the show were Roxanne Dawson and Ethan Phillips, who B'Elanna Torres
and Neelix,
because they had the most. They had
the lion's share of screen time.
We're sitting there talking about how much we hated, what they did with Torres' character all through the episode. She loved it. They've explored all these new avenues with my character. She was totally in love with it because they gave her something to do. Because on those shows, it's like, am I in it this week? Well, we got one line, and then some episodes you're in the half the scenes in it.
While we're on this, I have to tell you a quick story. I had the pleasure to do a bit part on Heroes. I believe it's season 3. Okay. My director was B'Elanna Torres.
Right.
Roxanne Dawson. She was there at the audition. She wasn't at the first audition. When I walk into the room for the callback, there she is. I go, holy shit, that's B'Elanna Torres. Let me keep my shit together because I always liked her. And I did the lines, and she went, great. She looked over at the guy in the room, and I knew I had the part from the look in her eye. I leave the room, I get the part, come on set, there she is. Like, holy shit, I'm working with B'Elanna Torres. Please tell me what to do. I can't wait to obey you.
Now, what's funny is that she went on to, she's a very successful director. Mm-hmm. And Robert Duncan McNeil, who played Tom Paris, is also very successful. He's the executive producer on what is that on Sci-Fi? A Resident Alien, which is a really funny comedy on Sci-Fi.
Oh wow!
And he runs that show. I think he directs some of the episodes, but he's done really well.
That's great. That's
just
great.
Like she is, both of them. It's kind of funny that they were married on the show and they both went into direction.
Yes. And isn't there was another guy, a writer, he had a comment I saw.
Nick Sagan.
Okay, Sagan. What did he say?
Nick Sagan. Nick Sagan said that there were a lot of people working together on this, so I don't really feel any authorship. Meaning, he'd think, it's what we're talking about. It's a committee. A committee took over the episode, and he's like, well,
you could tell.
He's kind of washing his hands of it.
You could tell, because at one point, Farik, I believe, who's the Malon, played expertly by Ron Canada. That the actor, he played him. He's played Klingons on the show. He played. He's been on many Star Trek episodes. Next Generation. He's one of those great character actors that you never know his name, but you see his face or hear his voice, you go, that's him. He was great on the show as well, but you could tell it was done by committee because they tried to make Canada's character, Farik, I believe his name is, the Malon commander, this noble guy who's doing this horrible thing to protect his people. Then that kind of gets lost in how selfish the Malon are for not changing their economy and dumping all this horrible toxic waste around. And then the disregard he has for his crew, go down there and hang out where the horrible toxins are going to kill you. Like it just seemed, it seemed disconnected. You could tell this had been done by many different writers, and it seemed like it was done at different times. Like these writers weren't in the same room at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a good episode.
No, it wasn't a good episode. It didn't. If it was just a sci-fi show, you probably would have thought, okay, that's fine. But Star Trek, not good.
I wonder if that's why they had it air on the first night of the switch to the new time slot.
Because they didn't think it was a good show.
Because they thought, well, our ratings will be down that night anyway. We'll throw it there. No one will see it.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back with our feature, our first ever Star Trek toss-up. I'm broadcasting from Bajor this week, so I can't even imagine why it's so hot here. This is supposed to be a nice planet.
Could you pick up some of that nice jewelry they have for my wife? She really loves the earrings.
For Peggy, I will do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a new feature today, and it's called Toss Up.
Toss Up. Worst Star Trek series, Star Trek Enterprise, or Star Trek Discovery?
No, that's tough. Decide. I'm going to say Discovery.
Whoa, really? Why?
No, I don't know why. I guess I like I like the Beagle in Discovery or in
the
Enterprise.
Beagle.
Although they did have a cat on Discovery, which my wife really liked.
Porthos is the dog's name on Enterprise.
Right,
Porthos.
One of the Musketeers.
He's named after one of the Musketeers. I think I have to agree with you, Kramer. And I've never watched Discovery. I watched half of the first episode and I turned it off.
You know what was great on Discovery, though, was T'Pau. The actress who played Jolene Blalock,
yes.
she was fabulous.
She's really good.
I've heard stories about how seriously she took that character, and I really admire her.
While she was on the show, she came down to Second City out here in Los Angeles and wanted to take some improv classes because she felt like it would help her work on the show. And our friend Mark Warzeka trained her in improv. She looked like she's on the show coming down there taking classes. So that's shows fabulous. You her commitment. But yeah, I have to say
there's a story. I have to tell you.
Oh, good.
It's so good. She got into an argument with the director. There was this episode where they were going to watch an old school movie on the Enterprise. They had it set up like a little movie theater in one of the big rooms. And so part of the deal is that you have to eat popcorn. And she won't eat the popcorn with her fingers. And the director says, why? Because Vulcans don't touch their food with their hands. It's like really a stiff, because she researched the character. And it's like, real fans know that they won't pick up food with their hands. And so he got all pissed off at her and everything, and because she wanted chopsticks or something, and he wouldn't do it. So instead, what she did was she took they gave her a napkin, and she took the napkin and used that to take the popcorn to her mouth.
Wow, what an idiot director! Your actor is telling you, I've done this research. I'm in character. Now you're going to pull me out of character for your fucking pretty picture, man.
Right. We're in a hurry. Would you just eat the popcorn? That kind of, and she wouldn't do it.
I'm glad she wouldn't do it. Credit to her. But yeah, I agree with you about Enterprise, because even though the show looked backwards, it was actually, at certain times the show was brilliant. At other times it was awful. But I'm gonna say no.
The theme song.
No, let's not even get into the theme song. I literally wrote the showrunners asking them to change it, and I signed the petition. But for Discovery, again, I hate mirror universes. I can barely tolerate the original series when they did the Mirror show, and I feel like Discovery looks backwards. We wanted a show going forward. Even Enterprise had already been a failure. We don't need another show going backwards. So, yeah, I'll have to go with Discovery on that. Okay, what's next?
Toss up. Best first officer on a Star Trek series, Spock or William Riker?
Oh, you insult me with that one. Come on, Spock. There's no way you couldn't find 5 people that would choose Riker over Spock.
Wow, I think you're right. So that's just a lame one, huh?
Yeah, I mean, nothing against Jonathan Frakes. I mean, he directed, was it Star Trek with the Borg, which I can't remember the title of the movie. He's a
First
good
Contact.
director. Contact. I thought that was the best Star Trek with the Next Generation cast.
Yeah, I agree.
I loved First Contact, and he did a great job directing that. But come on, Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, it's got to be Spock. Spock's my favorite character anyway. Spock's my favorite Star Trek character. I like Riker a lot. I really liked Jonathan Frakes until later years. He got fat and lazy. But other than that, I thought Riker, he's a great first officer. And one of the reasons I know I liked him a lot was when Captain Jellicoe comes on the show and just treats the Enterprise crew so bad and relieves Riker of duty. And we were like, dude, we don't need you. Riker can run the ship. We don't need you.
Yeah.
All right, that's an easy one. The crew's got to come up with better toss-ups. The crew. I'm the one that wrote the damn thing.
Hey, I got one.
Oh, you got one. Okay.
I got a toss-up.
All right,
toss-up. Most annoying character.
You got to name some. You can't just say, there's no toss up unless you give us something to toss up.
All right. Oh, damn. Okay. Most annoying character, Neelix or Wesley Crusher?
Oh, I don't think either one's annoying.
Oh, there you go.
I like Crusher and I like Neelix.
Well, I find them both of them. I like Will Wheaton. I think Will Wheaton has had a fabulous post Star Trek career. He's done a lot of good stuff and all. He's a cool guy, but I mean, the whole thing about having a kid on the bridge. Come on! It's like in no universe is that going to happen. Mom, can I go hang out on the bridge with the captain and the other guys? We're going to have a battle with the Klingons. Oh, sure, Wesley, just be home for dinner.
Well, since it's a toss-up, by the rules of the game, I have to pick one, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to have to go with Neelix. And the way he just mommied Kes got annoying.
Oh, yes.
So between the two, I'll have to go Neelix. And I know that's probably unpopular because I know a lot of people had hate for Wesley Crusher, which I still don't understand.
Yeah, I don't have hate for Wesley Crusher. I just thought the situation they put him in was ridiculous. If they had kept him off the bridge, then I have no problem with him then. But this whole thing where he's at the console next to Data and stuff, flying the ship, it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's just not going to happen. Half of them, there's a million things they could have done with him on the ship.
All right, let's do one more.
Toss up. Worst first officer on a Star Trek series. Major Kira or Chakotay?
Ooh, I'm going to go with Chakotay.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. Although, I mean, I don't know. I thought Kira didn't have the stolen thing going on. She was kind of like, she's looking out for the Bajorans. And I give her credit for that. That's what she was there to do. She stayed pretty, true to her mission and stuff. And, she kind of got, actually, both of them sort of got thrown into this. Neither one of them asked for the job.
That's true.
So there you go.
I have to go with Chakotay as well, unfortunately. But only because, let me put it to you this way. I got a lot of problems with Kira. Most of them stem from she probably weighs 85 pounds soaking wet, carrying a bag of bricks, but she can beat up 6'5", 300-pound Klingons 2 at a time, which is bizarrely ridiculous to me. Like, you didn't even start fighting until you were a teenager. You grew up in a farming community and were forced into being a terrorist. When did you become this super kick-ass warrior who can just beat the hell out of Nausicaans twice your size? It's ridiculous. So anytime Kira goes into a fight, you already know she's going to beat up whoever she's fighting, no matter who it is. So that problem I have with Kira. Also, she gets way too many storylines, and most of them are boring. With Chakotay, you had such a great opportunity here.
Yeah. He could have been a fabulous. I mean, the setup was great. Just the execution
was so bad.
I don't blame him. No one wanted to write for him.
Oh, and well, look at Beltran. He just. I don't want to call anybody a lazy actor, but my God, dude, he just seemed like such a lazy actor. Even when they gave you something, he seemed to walk through it. And then the last few seasons, he's just walking through the scenes. He's just walking through it. He plays everything almost at the same emotional level. And normally you might even want to say, okay, that he's being directed to do that. But this is a TV show. And I just happen to know that once you're on a hit show and your core cast, you have more power on set than the director. The producers have all the power, but the actors have more set than the director, because the director's probably going to change next week. You're temporary. In fact, when I was on the Hero set, Milo Ventimiglia was having a problem with the set. And he says to Roxanne Dawson, he says to her, can we get the writers on the phone? So, I'm all ears. I'm listening. He's like, can we get the writers on the phone? She says, you'll have to call. If I start calling the writers, I could be out of here, but they're not going to fire you. So because Milo Ventimiglia wanted to stop production and talk to the writers, they stopped production and talked to the writers. But the director on set said, I'm not going to do it. They'll fire me. You do it.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that these are Beltran's choices. He chose to play it sullen like this. He chose to do these things. I think part of it is his execution as an actor. He doesn't get the meatiest storylines. And then as the series went on, he started putting on weight and became the classic fat, lazy actor.
Okay.
He did it. Avery Brooks did it on DS9, and Frakes did it on Next Generation. All right. That'll make me a few friends, won't it?
Yes, because they're all going to listen to this podcast as soon as we post it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with other Star Trek fans everywhere.
Yeah, and if we screwed anything up, remember, we're trying to be the perfect Star Trek podcast, so please write into us through our website and let us know what we messed up, and we'll talk about it.
At www.StarTrekThePerfectPodcast.com. You can check us out on our YouTube channel and our various other social media handles that are coming up on the screen right now. All right, thanks for tuning in. And Kramer, thank you for doing the show with me.
Thanks for having me, David.
All right, buddy. Jolan True.
Kramer out.